Alright, so getting the clutch cover off, I've done this many times in my videos. So all the bolts are now loose. And I'll just help myself with the use of impact gun to get them out, to get them off quickly. So as you can see, well actually you can't, but I've got an oil pan underneath. Oil doesn't have to be drained for this job because having this motorcycle on the side stand, it actually works quite well. Right, now the pressure plate comes off, little bearing here and the washer. Okay, so don't lose those two parts. Always good time to inspect this bearing here if you haven't got any of those rollers missing. Okay, so the push piece comes out. Alright, so now removing this 50mm nut holding the whole assembly there. Normally you would use a clutch holding tool, which I've done in my other clutch replacement video for the RF, but this time I'm going to cheat and do it quicker with the use of a rattle gun. So there we go, that's the 50mm nut. That comes off, excellent. And now we can remove this plate here. And in there you'll see there's going to be two diaphragm springs, so I'm just going to keep them there without messing around. Okay, now so before I start removing all of that, I'm going to have to remove a few clutch plates, so I'm going to use magnets for that. Yeah, that should be okay with those inside. If not, I'll take them out in a minute. Now, so there is a nut here, and this nut has been punched in here. You see there's a little, can you see this? You see how it's punched in here? So it holds to that shaft there. So now I'm going to have to use a punch to make this little bit here straight, so then I can unscrew the nut. Alright, so a little punch and a hammer, and hopefully that's going to work. Right, have a look. Can you see this? Now it seems to be straight. Right, taking this off once again. I think I'm going to have to use the clutch holding tool because the whole assembly will spin with it. But I'll try first with a nut buster, and this is, by the way, 30mm. No, the whole thing spins. Oh, actually no, it's come off. Okay, that was easy. So that's what it looks like. And behind that there's going to be a little washer. So let's keep those in order as well. And there we go. So now I'll be able to just slide all of this off, all the plates. There we go. So all that comes off. And here behind there's going to be a washer too. So keep correct orientation of it or whatever. This comes off. Alright, and now we've got the shaft here that comes from the gearbox and the main clutch hub. So to remove that, alright people, so have a look. To remove this main clutch basket, you've got to remove, can you see this? You've got to remove that spacer and that bearing. This is not going to work with a magnet because it sits there so tight that the magnet just doesn't grab it. So you've got to use those little picks. I mean, It's kind of hard, but it actually is coming out a bit. There we go, you see? So I grabbed it here and it came out. So this is your needle bearing. Well, let me just get the better view here. So that's what it looks like. And now this spacer here, alright, this spacer will come off as well. It's got some holes here, being oil passages for this. Okay. And that way you can see that you've got this clutch basket loose. And so it comes out. So that's the basket out. And at the back you've got that. So to be able to remove stuff from the other side, the sprocket cover needs to come off. So for the sprocket cover to come off, this shift linkage has to come off. Alright, so the cover comes off. There we go, and I'm just going to rest it. Just going to rest it here. And then here there's going to be this little circlip which needs to be removed. So, hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. And of course it hasn't come out. Okay, it has now. So this is the circlip. Can you see? Ah, there we go. That's a little clip on that shaft there. This came out good. Right, peeps. So the main basket is off. So just to show you here, you've got this washer which covers the bearing. So if you take the washer off, then there's going to be the bearing on that shaft. I'm not going to mess around with this because that's not what I'm doing today. And another interesting thing is that if you take a look here, alright, so this is the bottom of the crankcase. In that hole there, that's literally where the oil sits. That's your pan, and that there as well. So look, I'm putting the finger there, that's literally the oil pan. You see? So I think it's going to be wise to maybe cover those two holes with something, such as, I don't know, maybe some plastic bag to make sure nothing drops in there. Alright people, so now I'm going to have to remove a couple of things here. First I'm going to remove that circlip here on that cog, and then I'm going to have to remove that screw here at the bottom, that screw here, and that nut here. Can you see that nut here? Probably can't, but you'll be seeing me removing this. So first of all I'm going to start with that circlip, and that will allow me to slide that wheel off, and hopefully nothing's gonna, am I right, or something has just fallen down? Yes, something has fallen down. Look at this. I've dropped this in the pan, and luckily I was mega lucky I recovered myself with the bloody magnet. Alright peeps, so I've removed this 10mm little nut here, and now I'm going to have to remove that screw here and that screw there. And I can tell you already, you've got to use proper screwdrivers for this, which is a JIS tip. And also, just to break them loose, I actually used impact screwdriver because they sit there mega tight. So be careful not to round them off. Okay, so that's the screw. So that's the top screw, countersink type. And now behind that arm there's that little bit there. Okay people, so I tapped it on that shaft on the other side, and that kind of released it. So now it can be removed. That's just some little bits from the other side. There is a washer on it and it just fell down, that's all it is. Alright, so that's your shift mechanism, shift rod rather I would say, removed. It's just a little something to make you aware of. Removing this shift rod, right, so this is where your shift lever connects to. You're gonna end up with a hole here through which you might get some oil drip. So this is why you've got to have the pan underneath, and you've got to clog it pretty quickly. I've lost about 200 mils, so it's not a dramatic loss, but be aware of this. You've got to plug it with something for time being when you're removing that shift rod. Now I'm going to remove this bracket here. Okay, so it comes off. Alright, so that's what I've done. I know that part was at the top and facing outwards. Alright, then there's this spring here. Okay, so you know that was the orientation of it sitting there in the engine. So you see this arm here? Okay, so to remove that there's going to be another nut here, and I think this is a 10 mil nut which needs to be removed, so I'll do it now. Alright, so 10mm socket on it, and actually it comes off fairly easily. I've got to be somewhat careful with it. I'll hold it there just in case so it doesn't drop anywhere. I don't know if it can or not, but I'll just keep it there for a moment. Okay, so this comes off, that's what it looks like. And now I'm going to use a magnet to get this. You see, this is why it's good to work with magnets, because that arm has a little washer at the back. Alright, we've got it out. Alright, so here's the comparison of parts. So this is a factory pro kit, and this is a standard kit. Actually, I believe this spring is actually also factory pro, because looking at the thickness of the windings of the wire, it's about the same. So maybe somebody has replaced it before, but that's not a full kit, because the full kit actually includes the shifting arm with a micro bearing. So look at this. This is a stock RF 900 shifting arm, and that's the factory pro kit with the little bearing there, you see. So the whole deal is that when this arm goes over what they call this shifting star, okay, it needs to press on it, and then that spins, but that creates resistance because it's almost like a solid piece, right? Whereas here you've got this tiny micro bearing which spins freely. So when the arm goes over that shifting star, it goes over a lot smoother, and I can show you how super quick and how smoothly this actually spins by using compressed air. Look at this. Look at this. Did you hear this? It actually even makes the sound. So a lot less resistance, and this is why this kit is so much better. This is the fun part, reinstallation. So I've got my shifting arm here, which goes on that bolt, and let's not forget there's a washer here as well. Okay, so there's a washer there, and the service manual says to apply a tiny little amount of thread locker on that thread, which I did. So then I'm gonna try to insert it there. The 10mm socket. So just make sure that this arm can freely move here. Okay, now this is going to be the fun part. It's the spring. So the spring is actually quite tight and is going to be not very flexible, if you know what I mean. So that bit there has to engage with that little groove on the arm, and then that bit here, okay, goes in here. Okay, so maybe I'm just gonna start with, you see, top has engaged. So you see the top has engaged, and now I'm just gonna have to, oh actually, that was pretty damn easy, to be honest. Okay, so it almost sits there. I've got the top engaged and the bottom slides off, but as soon as I'm gonna put a nut on here, it should pop it in place. Okay, so now we've got that bit here with a little dot that I've made before. And so let's not forget it's got that thing here. And all that goes in there. Alright, so this is going to be damn tricky, but I'm going to try to do it like this. First I'm going to put that part in here. Then it's going to sink in there. And then I've got that, which needs to go behind this. And then we've got that bolt here. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to turn this just a few times so it engages there. Alright, and now I'm going to have to put this nut here at the bottom. But before I do that, I'm going to do what they recommend, which is putting just a tiny little amount of thread locker there. Then the nut goes in. And now again, this is going to be somewhat tricky because I've got to, you see this spring here, that spring isn't fully seated there, so I've got to kind of push it there, and at the same time I've got to turn that nut here. Okay, so I'm gonna push the spring there. I'm going to magnify it for you. So just in here, you've got that spring, and when I turn it, it pushes the spring to this side wall here. Okay, just a gentle amount of thread locker, and we're in. And now I'm just going to put one more screw here, which is that one there. Right, so I think the worst part is behind me. This shaft here, it's got a hole for this pin, and that pin loves to drop in there into the pan, which would be disastrous. I'm just going to try to align it. Okay, it locked in. Woo! Brilliant. So now it's another shitty part, which is going to be installing of that little circlip, and the circlip always has to go, in this case, with, you know, the rough edge towards the outer side. See, the trouble is I don't have good pliers here, and this is why oh, actually, so now let's just make sure it fully goes in, snaps in that groove, because I don't think it did. No, I don't think it did. This snap ring isn't fully seated there, and it seems to me that what you've got to do is you've got to grab that shaft here, pull it out, because this shaft, you see, it actually can come out a bit, and then having the shaft out, you've got to, there we go. Yeah, now the circlip is fully inserted. What I mean is, if you couldn't fully insert it, you would go here. You see how it comes out? So you would pull out this shaft, and then having it pulled out, you would push on that snap ring to fully engage with that shaft there. So now let's install this primary driven gear. So the main set of teeth, right, has to engage with the crankshaft in there, with that cog on the crankshaft in there, and then you've got a second set of cogs which needs to engage with this here. That's your oil pump drive. Right, so first I'm going to put the bearing in. You've got to kind of press it and wiggle it around. There we go. You see, you've got to kind of keep wiggling this. And there we go. It sits in there. So that goes in there. And then we've got the smaller basket, and that just goes in there. Then there's the washer here, and on that you're putting on that nut. So that goes on. I'm just going to start it. So 150 Newton meters set. Okay, that's 150. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to have to punch this here a few times to make sure this doesn't come off. Okay, I think a couple of more taps. Alright, so I'm hoping you can see this here. It's actually bent a bit, so now it should hold it from spinning. Right now installing those two rings in there. The first one is flat, so it just goes in like that. Second ring is, it's not flat, it's actually like a sort of like a cup shape, and then you're installing it the way that, like the cup going towards the engine. And then you've got a very simple job, which is just installing the plates. So remember, the first plate is a bit differently shaped. So have a look, you see they're different. Then the plate goes in, springs nicely oiled up, go in there, and then we can again clamp it with a 15mm nut. And once again I'm going to have to use a clutch holding tool for that one. Again, this time they want 100 Newton meters. Okay, well that's 100. Right peeps, at that point your little push piece goes in. Okay, on top of that you've got your bearing, then you've got your little washer, and then your pressure plate. Back on the upside, then this washer goes on here, and then of course you've got this little snap ring which needs to be installed back. So you want to make sure that this little washer there and the circlip are nicely inserted. Okay. Alright, so that goes in. And now then bolts here. Okay, and then let's not forget to install this correctly. Which was just like that. Back on the clutch side, installation of the circlip. Now before you install it, you need to push this plate in there, and you've got to act quick because it will be coming out on its own. There we go. Right, before I install the cover, I'll just tell you that here and here, where you've got the lines where the crankcases meet, Suzuki recommends to put some tiny amount of silicone there. So I've got 2 little red spots. Alright, let's install this. So now I'm gonna just torque all of them up, and I think this is 14 Newton meters, and we can call it a day. Job done, and then time for a test ride.